We're gonna take our left hand over toward the right armpit. We have a ton of lymph nodes near our armpit. And we're just gonna start swinging the arm forward and back. And this left hand is just kind of lifting the armpit and the shoulder up. So it's a little pump of the armpit. That is really good to get lymph flowing. Couple more swings. And then switch. Right hand crosses over toward that left armpit under the shoulder. You can do that little pump up toward the armpit. And then just let the arms swing. So just whatever amount of swing feels good as you get this little lift. So this gets the lymph back up toward the heart. Good. Okay, right arm comes back up. Lift that right arm up. Side bend to the left, but keep the ribs in toward the body. So don't let those ribs pop forward. Let's let the neck release and open and close the right hand. So fist to fire, getting that lymph from the wrist, moving back up the arm. And then come back up, left arm up, glide that left shoulder and shoulder blade up, side bend, let the neck release if it feels good, and let's open and close the hand. Going as fast as you can, working into that left wrist. Good, come back up. Let's head to quadruped, hands and knees. Good, a couple more wrist lifts here. So walk those knees in nice and tight under the hip creases, shoulders over the wrists. We're gonna try to lift just the heels of the hands up. My fingers and my knuckles are still down, and then lower the heels of the hands with control. Lift the heels of the hands up, fingers and knuckles stay down, and then lower with control. So keep doing this. You can go super slow, you can go a little bit faster, but we're using the strength of the core and the arms and the wrists. We're not slamming the heels of the hands down. So it's a control, lift and lower. Good, keep that left hand down, right arm will reach out to the side. Turn the ribs to the right, let the neck release, big inhale here. And as you exhale, thread that right arm underneath you, rotating the ribs the other way. Push into that left hand, nice and strong in that left arm and shoulder as we turn the ribs right, big inhale. Exhale, thread it under. One more time, push into that left hand, rotate right. Exhale, thread it under. Come back to your quadruped. Strong in the right shoulder now as that right hand stays down, left arm to the side. Rotate the ribs left. You can let the neck release. Big breath in. Exhale, thread it under. Try to keep the low back still. So we're turning through the ribs. Push into that right hand. Rotate the ribs left. Thread it under. One more time. Push into that right hand. Rotate left. Thread it under. Good, back to your quadruped. Let's cat-cow here. You could have toes tucked or untucked. And let's inhale as we arch the back, extending the spine. Exhale as we round the back and flex the spine. But even cat-cow is a good way to move all the lymph in the abdomen. So we have a ton of lymph and clusters of lymph in our abdomen between the ribs and the pelvis. So even a simple cat-cow is just a nice way to bring some movement to that area. Let's get ready for down dog. Find that neutral spine, align your triple S, toes tuck under. Now think about your thigh bones lifting up into the hips as we lift into down dog. So we're really lifting the thigh bones up into the pelvis, up, 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 pressing the hands into the mat. And if you want, you can pedal the feet out here. You can lift and lower both heels. You could do more of a little bop or bounce with the heels. It's all good to get the lymph from the feet back up the legs. So however you want to kind of pump or move it out here, you can. Keep pressing the hands into the ground and lifting the front ribs up into the body. So we're not arching the spine. Keep the thigh bones lifting up into the hips as we walk the hands back. Our heels are going to lower down into our happy squat, triple flexion. Now really feel the weight right in the middle of the feet. Knees are super bent, so you can let the head hang heavy. You can do a little wiggle or shimmy side to side. And let's push the ground away as we rise up. Pausing here at the back of the mat, checking in with that triple S. So we've got ears over the shoulders, over the ribs, over the pelvis. Pick up your right foot, so we'll flex that right hip. Take your left arm. We're just going to do a circle, and then it's going to tap that right thigh if you can. Step the right foot down, pick up the left foot. Take that right arm, circle it, tap the thigh, and then step it down. So opposite hand and leg, pick up that right foot, circle the hand, tap the thigh, step it down, one more, pick up the left foot, circle the right hand, tap that left thigh, right glute is on, and then step it down. Okay, coming from, or to the top of the mat, we're gonna just do a little bounce. So I want you to soften the knees and imagine that you're jump roping, but we're not actually jumping off the ground. So it's just a little bounce of the heels. My heels are lifting, but I'm staying light. I'm not pushing the knees forward. You can add a little shake of the hands too. You could even imagine that invisible jump rope, but light in the feet, nice and bouncy. And then just soften, reach the arms up. Keep those ribs from popping forward. Big bend in the knees. Keep lifting the thigh bones up as we hinge forward. Long spine. We're coming into quadruped. This time we belly roll. So let's roll the belly in a circle a couple times both ways. Again, this is a great way to get that lymph flowing in the abdomen. Find a neutral position here in your quadruped. Right foot steps forward, left knee slides in for our 90-90 or our half kneel, tightening that left glute. Now again, we want ears over the shoulders, over the ribs, over the pelvis. Let's roll the shoulders back, one at a time, and really feel the shoulder blades move. They lift up, draw in toward the spine, and then draw down the back. Keep that left glute firm, keep that left thigh bone lifting up into that left hip. Hands come down, you can come to fist if that feels better. Our right leg will come back for right three-legged quadruped. Lift the belly up toward the sacrum so that we're not arching the low back. Keep the ribs in. Right knee will bend. Let's hold the low back still, hold the pelvis still as we externally and internally rotate that right hip. So we're keeping that feeling of our two pelvic points drawing in. We're lifting the front of the throat. Now step that right foot out to the right for an adductor stretch. Parallel that right foot so the toes are facing forward. Try to push into the full right foot, even the pinky toe as we start to rock forward and back. Any pace that feels good. So this is great for the hip joint. This is also good for lymph here. We've got lymph right around the crease of our groin, a ton of lymph clusters there. So that hip internal and external rotation we were just doing was also good to get the lymph flowing around the hip joint. And then step it back into your quadruped. We're going to take that left foot, step it forward, half kneel, come into that 90-90. Give that right glute a little squeeze. Feel your right thigh bone lift up into the pelvis. Let's roll the shoulders. So one shoulder rolls back at a time. Try to keep the hips out of it so we're not wiggling. We're super firm in this right glute. And as we roll these shoulders back, we're getting that lymph flowing again around the armpit, around the shoulder. Keep those pelvic points drawing in, tailbone reaching down. Hands or fists come down under the shoulder. Left leg back, three-legged quadruped. Lift the throat, soften the chest down. Now imagine balancing a glass of water on your low back as we bend the knee. We're going to externally and internally rotate that left hip. So the only thing moving is this left leg. The low back isn't turning or rotating with it. That right hip is staying really solid. And we're moving the hip joint and the lymph around the crease of the groin. Take that left foot, step it out to your left side of the mat. Adductor stretch, inner thigh stretch. Rock it forward and back, or do whatever feels good here. Push into your full left foot, so not just the big toe, pinky toe too. Feel that 360 breath expanding into the front side and back ribs especially. Bring it back into your quadruped. Take any option here. You can move around in cat-cow. You could take a child's pose if that feels good. You could, of course, tuck the toes, come to down dog. If you want some of that extra movement in down dog, pedal the feet out. Lift and lower the heels. Add a little bounce. Let's walk it forward, bent knee forward folds. We're gonna keep that big bend in the knees so we can evenly press into the middle of the feet as we rise up. Reach those arms up, lift the shoulder blades, but keep the ribs in. Soften the knees. Feel your thigh bones lift up into the hips as we hinge without rounding. Nice and long, quadruped. Again, we belly roll, both directions, couple times. Right foot steps forward. We tuck the left toes under this time. Same 90-90 or half kneel. Picture that broom behind your back, touching the back of your skull, shoulder blades, and sacrum. Both arms reach forward. Keep the ribs in. Take the right arm up. We're gonna open as we turn just the ribs to the right. Don't let the low back or the hips turn with it, and then circle it around. So we're just doing a little arm circle, getting the shoulder moving, getting the ribs and the thoracic spine turning right, but keep that left glute firm. So we're not turning the hips with it. Hips are staying out of it. Rotating the mid and upper back as we stretch and open the front of that left hip. Heading into modified side plank, left hand comes under the shoulder, left knee slides in. You can swivel the left foot out to the side if that feels better, right foot back. Now secure this left shoulder, left hip over that left knee. Hold the ribs in, so maybe we bring hands to those front ribs for a moment. Right foot can float. Now if you're feeling steady, you can add on. If you're feeling a little wiggly, right foot can be on or off the ground. Our add-on option is to flex the right hip, bend the knee, pull that thigh in toward the body without changing anything in that bottom shoulder or bottom hip, and then reach it back out. Pull it in. So this is just an add-on. If you're adding this hip flexion, again, we're hydrating, we're moving that right hip joint, and we're getting the lymph around that right hip crease moving. Make your way back to quadruped. And let's do a couple of those wrist lifts. So find that triple S, lift the heels of the hands up and down with control. You can even try lifting the hands all the way up so we're just on the fingertips. That adds a little bit more, so if that's not happening, stick with just the heel of the hand. Left foot steps forward, heading to that 90-90 or half kneel, right toes tuck. Zipper the pubic bone up, reach the tailbone down. Ribs in, arms forward. Now picture those headlights at the front of your pelvis. They're not going to turn, they're going to stay facing forward. Left arm up, we turn just the rib cage and the sternum to the left, and then circle it around. So really, we've got to be super active in this right hip and glute, the right side of the pelvis, so that we're not turning in the lower body. We're really isolating just around the rib cage as we stretch and open the front of the right hip. Modified side plank, right hand comes down under the shoulder. Right knee slides even further in. You can always kickstand right foot out to the right. Left foot back. Secure that right shoulder over the wrist, right hip over the knee, tailbone reaching toward that left foot, ribs in. Maybe we stay, foot can be on or off the ground. Maybe we add that flexion, bending the left knee, pulling the thigh toward the body without anything else changing. It's okay if you're wiggling, but really think, how can I keep the pelvis neutral? How can I use my deep core to support here? So I'm not sinking into any joints. I'm really stable, I'm really active. Lower down to quadruped. Any option, cat-cow or circle, child's pose, down dog. Check in with your breath. The very easiest and best place to start for better lymph flow is better breathing. Get that diaphragm involved. Feel the ribs expand front, side, and back. Walk it forward. Bent knee forward fold. Push down into your feet. Let's reach the arms forward and up. Good. Hands come down for a moment. We'll do another little lymph flow. So soften the knees. We're going to hinge at the hips, coming into a hip hinge or a chair pose, but we're not sticking the butt out by arching the back. Our pelvis stays neutral and it comes from the hips moving back. Keep the ribs lifted. Now just find a little bit of a bounce here. So again, my knees aren't going forward. It's all happening in my hips. So I'm pushing the ground away. I'm feeling my thigh bones lift up. You could add an arm swing. Get as many body parts as you can moving, and that's another great way to get lymph flowing. So you can always add extra arms reaching or circling, and we just want to feel a little bit of a bounce here. Make sure you're still breathing. If you want to lift those heels and get some air, go for it. Add a little bounce, a little lift off. Okay, we're going to step our right foot back into a high lunge. So our right foot steps back. You can shorten the stance as much as you need. Zipper that pubic bone up. Glutes are nice and strong. Now we're going to move the hips. So you can have hands at sides of the pelvis, front and back, whatever's more helpful. Our right hip will externally rotate so that we're coming into a goddess-ish at the side of the mat or corner of the mat. And then lift the heel, internally rotate so we're facing forward again in that high lunge. So we externally rotate the back hip, land the heel, feet do not have to line up perfectly, lift the heel, internally rotate forward. So as we're doing this, we want to keep the pelvis out of it, so that pelvis is still upright, pubic bone lifting up, tailbone reaching down. We're really working both hips here. So both hips are going from a neutral position into externally rotated, and then that back one's going to internally rotate. So we're getting a lot of movement for the hip joint, moving from a forward facing position to a sideways facing position. Stop the next time you come into that goddess and pause. Take that right arm, it can come to the right thigh, stay at the right hip, wherever you want. Left arm will come up and over. Side bend here. Take your right hand to the front ribs. Pull them a little bit in toward the body so that we're not tipping forward or popping those ribs forward. You could stay here. You could sweep or circle that left arm. Adding a little bit more movement for that left shoulder joint, for the lymph around the armpit and the shoulder, pushing into the feet. Lift yourself back up, and let's turn it all the way back to the front to that high lunge and step it forward. Good, left foot back. So now we know what we're doing. You can have the stance as short as you want. Pelvis stays neutral. Externally rotate that back hip. We're turning to the side-ish of the mat. You do not have to face all the way to the side. It's whatever your range of motion for your hips are. So it's okay if the feet are more parallel. They don't have to be turned out. We want all of this movement and range of motion to be coming from the hip joint, not lower down at the knee and not lower down at the feet. So the feet are just reflecting that internal and external rotation of the hip joint. Really working to keep that pelvis neutral. Pelvic bowl stays upright. This time when we come to that squat, we'll pause. You can always adjust the feet if it needs to be more comfortable. Zipper that pubic bone up. Side bend, right arm up and over. Left hand to those front ribs, pull them in toward the body. Stay here or circle that right arm. So we want to make sure that those ribs aren't arching here. If we're in this extended position, the breath can't move into those back ribs as much, and we want that expansion into the upper back. So make sure that as we're doing this, we're not popping forward, we're holding that stacked position. Good, come back up. Turn it back to the front, and then step that left foot forward. Okay, we're gonna face the side of the mat, whichever way you want. And we're gonna gonna try a different type of side lunge today. So we're gonna just side lunge to the right for a while. You could have hands anywhere, triple S, ribs, sternum, whatever you need. Take a side lunge to the right and pause. Feel your weight right in the middle of that right foot. So we're not rocking back onto the heels. We're not too far forward into the toes, right in the middle. And then push the ground away to straighten the right leg. Back into a standing position. So we side lunge, the hip moves back, and then we push the ground away to rise back up. You can start to go faster. Push the ground away, make it a little bit more dynamic. But we want to check that we're not tipping the pelvis forward. So yes, it's a stretch, but it shouldn't hopefully feel like any kind of painful pull at the back of the hamstring or the back of the pelvis. And then if you want, if you're feeling really stable and strong in the hip, you could try to add a push off. Push off those right toes, side lunge and push off. Now you might notice the push off, doable, but the coming down might be harder. So we need to work that eccentric strength of the hip so that we can land softly and quietly without feeling it in the knees. So we're using the core to support, even the floor of the core, the pelvic floor. And we're holding that neutral position, really feeling it in that right hip and glute. Good, last one. Good, let's switch over to the left side. So now we're gonna side lunge left. Well, face sideways, we want that left hip moving back. We still want the feeling of the thigh bone lifting up into the pelvis. And let's start with just that push away. So we don't even have to fully straighten and bend. It could be a much smaller movement. It's going to depend on the range of motion at the hip for flexion, but also how open we are in the back of the hip. So if we're tighter there, that's going to limit the amount we can hinge. So stick within your own range where you feel like, ooh, I feel my muscles working. Maybe we add that little push off. Landing softly. Sitting back into that left hip. Couple more times. Good, come back up, and we'll make our way to the front of the mat, standing. Okay, we're gonna move. We're gonna be walking, skipping, hopping, anything you want. The first option, lifting our heels. Tiptoe walk backwards. You can have the knees super bent or very soft. We don't want to be locking them out. You could stick with just tiptoe. You could fire walk back, working on that ankle dorsiflexion. Fantastic and so important. And then tiptoe forward. So that's our second option. Really get those heels down. Okay, other options. You could stay in place. You could invisible jump rope. You could shake. You could skip forward and back. Basically, we're trying to move our bodies. We're trying to get that energy going. We're trying to get that lymph flowing, that blood flowing. So, you know, your camera's off, do what you want. Let yourself look silly. And then if you want, get those arms moving. Anytime we get more limbs moving, we're getting more lymph flowing. You could be doing our swings with the arm, maybe a heel lift. You could be hopping. But check in with your breath. Make sure you're not holding it. One more breath. Okay. Let's do a little bit of balance. Now that we're nice and loose, let's pick up our right foot. Flexing that right hip, left glute firm. Let's start with a point and flex. So getting that ankle moving, that ankle dorsiflexion and plantar flexion. But again, we've got lymph that's got to pump its way back up from the feet to the heart. And now pause here. You could stay exactly where you are. You could come to tree with the leg if you want. We're going to do arms out. Keep those ribs in. Standing, supporting hips strong. Let's circle. So now we're challenging our core and our balance. So anytime we add some movement of the limbs on top of the balance, it's called perturbation. So we're moving lymph in the arms, but we're also challenging our core and our balance. because obviously when we move the arms, that's gonna make us wiggle around a little bit more. So think about that core supporting you, that stack of the ribs over the pelvis. Go ahead, step it down. You can roll or shake out that left foot. And then we'll start by picking up that left foot. Right glute firm. Check like we did on our side lunges. We're not rocking back into that right heel. We're not just pushing into the toes. So right in the middle of that bottom foot. Point and flex. Get into that left ankle. Now pause here or in your tree. Zipper that pubic bone out. Arms out. Ribs stay in. Let's circle. You can do palms down, palms forward, palms up, whatever you prefer. But make sure that right hip is staying really strong. It's not sitting out to the right. Good, let's step it down. Shake out that right foot a little bit. And let's come into a seated position. And we'll finish up with a little bit more lymph love. So we're going to come around the jaw and right under the jaw. If you still have tonsils, you might not. But either way, we're going to take our hands under the jaw and you can just gently draw the hands down toward the neck and toward the collarbone. So tonsils actually are lymph nodes. They are very important. I'm happy I still have mine, but they do get inflamed. And when they get inflamed, that's a sign that something's going on with the lymph or you're fighting infection, because that's the job of the lymph, is to fight infection and to drain waste from your body. So it's really important that we keep the ability for the lymph to keep flowing and not get stuck in any areas. And then one last time, we'll come to the collarbones. So take your hands, you can do same hand and collarbone, you could do opposite arm and collarbone. And we're just gonna rub, you can do a little circle both ways. And finishing with that big 360 breath. So this collarbone area is one of the most important places for lymph flow in the body. This is where the lymph comes from your brain. So the waste from your brain drains and it comes through here to the collarbone and then down and around and comes back up. So we always want to make sure that this area is able to drain. There's nothing blocking it. And let's come onto our backs. You can roll all the way out to your right side, keeping those knees bent. We'll finish with some thoracic rotation here. You can open that left arm up and back and hold your twist. You can circle the arm, whatever feels good. Move more or make it a little more restful, whatever's feeling good today. And let's switch sides, rolling onto your left side, knees bent. Your choice here, whatever feels good. And if you're circling, you can always bend the right elbow so that it's a little bit less of a pull on the right shoulder and the right side of the chest. And we'll finish on our backs. Any position for Shavasana. Feel that triple S. Take a huge breath in. And let's exhale it out through the mouth. Releasing the jaw as you close your eyes. With each exhale, try to let go of any tension in the mind or the body. And take a moment to thank yourself for your practice today.